Does that work? I assume you can hear me?
Hi, we can't hear you very well. Can you try again?
Um, should be the same as for the council meeting, so.
Okay, it's perfect now. Thank you.
Okay.
We just try to determine if it's the floor audio or the Zoom. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. My name is Kina Leclerc and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kina Leclerc et je serai l'animatrice de ce point de presse. Before we begin, a quick reminder to place yourself on mute until I invite you to speak or to ask your question. Available for questions from the media, we have disponible pour répondre aux questions des médias, nous accueillons in council chambers, Mayor, le maire, Jim Watson, Steve Kanalakos, City Manager, Directeur Municipal. Phoning in today, we have Councillor Keith Egli, Chair, Ottawa Board of Health, my apologies. Conseiller municipal Keith Egli, Président du Conseil de santé d'Ottawa. Dr. Vera Etches, Medical Officer of Health, Médecin-chef en santé publique. And David White, City Solicitor, Chef du contentieux. Before I go for questions from the media, we will go to remarks from Mayor Jim Watson.
Great. Thank you very much, Kina. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bon après-midi, mesdames et messieurs. I'm very pleased that the city manager will be issuing a statement later today confirming that TRA has signed off on our restart plan for light rail transit in the City of Ottawa. So on Friday morning, train service will begin with 7 trains and spares. Alors, c'est des bonnes nouvelles pour les résidents de la
This is a good news for this City of Ottawa resident. The light rail will start again on Friday this week. They also confirmed that TRA authorized the use of the system.
This is good news for our passengers who have been frustrated and delayed for far too long. And we look forward to the train service coming back on Friday morning of this week. Alors maintenant, je suis disponible pour des questions. Very pleased.
So if you do have any question, please do not hesitate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will now invite each agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. If for some reason we lose you during the call, please try phoning in again or contact Media Relations to submit your question. We will now start with CBC Ottawa, Joanne or Kate.
Hi, it's Kate. Thanks, Kina. Thanks for those comments, Mayor Watson. I'd like to ask, though, because a source close to the Premier says Cabinet will be discussing withholding funds or having a judicial inquiry over LRT because it's seeking more accountability, and I'm wondering how you respond to that.
Well, first and foremost, it's an unnamed source, so it's considered a rumor at this stage as opposed to a fact. Secondly, I did have a very good conversation when the Premier was in town a couple of weeks ago, and he indicated to a similar question that he had confidence in the city and our staff to get these problems resolved. I also told him that we had requested our Auditor General to do a full investigation, and he was very satisfied with that. Thank you.
My other question is about Canada North, and I wonder, every candidate was asked, would you run again in 2022? And I wonder if it matters to you whether Kathy Curry runs next fall.
Well, ultimately, that's up to Kathy, and it's up to anyone else to decide whether they're going to run or not. There's nothing that we can do that would prevent someone from running again. And the reality is that I know people asking that questions were incumbents themselves. So, I suspect everyone who's an incumbent has an advantage over challengers. There's no question about that. But in this case, there's no legal requirement for the individual to say one way or the other whether they're going to not run or run. And I think she was just being honest and upfront, saying that it's a possibility. I think people who close that door too soon probably would be regretting it and kicking themselves, because at the end of the day, it's a relatively unique position to be in, and individuals like Ms. Curry have sat at the school board table, but not at the city council table. She may find after a few months this is not something that she enjoys. She may find that she's adding great value and great representation for the people of Canada North, and she would decide to run. So I don't think you can put individuals in a straitjacket and tell them we're not going to vote for you as a candidate if you don't promise not to run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now be going to Alex Gouge at City News Ottawa.
Hello, I just have one quick question for today, and it's from Mayor Watson. I was just wondering, what was the driving factor behind your vote for Kathy Curry?
I'm sorry, Alex, can you repeat that?
What was the driving factor behind your vote for Kathy Curry?
Two things. One, I thought she had a very strong presentation, very clear in what she wanted to accomplish. Secondly, I had some dealings with her when she was chair of the school board and found that she was a good leader.
J'ai trouvé qu'elle était une excellente leader autour de la table.
Oui, certainement. Je pense que
Yes, I think that Kathy made an excellent presentation for her candidate today. And I also worked with her a little bit when she was at the board, at the school board. And I'm pretty impressed with her leadership. I was impressed at the time with her leadership. Thank you.
Alex, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's it for today.
Okay, thank you. We'll now be going to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa.
Thanks, Keena. Hi there. This question is for Mayor Watson, just following up on Kate's question. Obviously, you're saying this is just a rumor right now, not a fact in terms of what sources are telling us with regard to the provincial cabinet possibly withholding funds or holding an inquiry on the LRT. But aside from that, if this was to happen, if the province was to withhold more funding, or if the province was to enforce an inquiry or hold an inquiry, how would you respond to that? What would be the city's reaction to something like that coming down from the province?
Well, we've had no contact from provincial officials to do with any potential inquiry. As I mentioned, the Premier was briefed by me. He said some very complimentary things about how the city was working to resolve the situation. And we obviously, he's aware that the trains are going to start running this week. As you know, the cost, if the province imposes it, is borne by the provincial government, not the city. But I think you saw here today that the desire of council is to let the independent auditor general take a top to bottom review of all of the safety elements of the LRT project and report back to us in an efficient and expedited fashion. And she has undertaken that there would be interim reports. We wouldn't have to wait for a year or 2 years to get information on how we can improve the situation for the passengers of OC Transpo. Thank you.
Okay, my next question is for Mr. Kanellakis, just with regards to the LRT coming back into service on Friday. Can you discuss a little bit about why the riders can trust it this time to go right? And what is your confidence level and the city's confidence level going into Friday?
Thank you. I met with TRA this afternoon. They came in to see me in terms of going through what their recommendation was. They had given me a formal letter, and we needed to have our chief safety officer, OC Transpo, Mr. Brandon Richards, lift the safety order. And I've just put the memo out just as we're speaking now, about a minute ago, to council, and it'll be released to the media. And I'm confident because TRA has effectively had them check those trains from top to bottom, has looked at all their maintenance processes, has put the kind of scrutiny in that maintenance facility that we needed. And based on the issues that they worked their way through that needed to be resolved, I think people can be very confident that those trains are safe and that everything that needed to be checked that's of a critical safety nature on those trains has been checked, and that those trains can go back in reliably. We've had, the last 2 days have been basically perfect days with the train running, and we've been experiencing that today. We've been testing them today. We hadn't had any issues with any of the trains that are out on the line, and we'll continue to test them through tonight and tomorrow. And Friday morning, we're looking forward to having our customers be able to get back on the trains.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with Craig Lord at Global Ottawa.
Thank you. It would be also for Steve Kanellakis, my questions, I believe. So I think and I apologize, this might be outlined in the memo, so apologize if I'm making you repeat anything when that comes out. But the plan, I believe, was 7 trains and a spare. But testing last week, we saw multiple trains had to be removed. So if we ever drop below, if a spare needs to be replaced, if we're ever below that 7 mark, would the line run with 5 trains or 6 trains? Like, at what point does the line just shut down again if we have to take trains out of service again?
The goal is to expand, Craig. The goal is to expand the number of spares we have there. See that even though we're putting the service back out on Friday, the work on maintaining all the other trains and getting them back in service and testing them and doing the loop test continues. So the plan is that as the trains go back in service on Friday, we'll be adding more trains to the fleet every day as we progress towards the end of November. So we'll be building it incrementally. So our spare count will grow. I'm actually hoping that by Friday we have more spares than the 1. We actually have 2 spares now that have been cleared, and they're just testing the 2nd spare. So, but what you raise is obviously an issue. As TRA said in the technical briefing the other day, nothing is perfect in terms of public transportation, and you could have glitches. You could have a door jam. You could have a fault switch go. You could have various minor things that delay the train or have to pull a train because we've got to reset it and we put a spare in place. The main thing, as TRA told me in my meeting this afternoon, is it's a big difference between having a door jam and getting delayed than having something that's catastrophic like a derailment. And what they were ensuring is that the normal reliability issues you see in any public transportation system are going to happen regardless of how good your maintenance is. Things sometimes break, things happen. The issue is we don't want any safety related issues. Reliability is one thing. Safety is the most important thing that they were checking and wanted to sign off or had to sign off on before I would agree to let the service back in. So, I'm confident that we will have enough spares, but yes, we could end up, down to 6 trains for momentary periods or down to 5 trains. That could happen. The issue for RTG and RTM, their maintenance arm, is that how quickly can they turn around? That is their test now going forward. Things happen. The performance and the execution about getting those trains out or getting them back in service in a speedy time frame is the most critical factor for us, because trains having issues are normal, but being speedy about replacing them is where they have to improve.
Thanks. And just following up on some of the comments you made during council today about potential judicial inquiry. We're hearing potentially the province might be going forward with one anyways, and you mentioned a lot about the burden on staff that would be resulting from this. So can you talk about, from a transit rider perspective, how would service on the line, how would OC Transpo be affected if there are now these 2 investigations, these staff are being stretched in so many different directions? How would that impact, a transit user's experience of the line?
Well, as I said in the council meeting, having the Auditor General investigation or audit alone is very taxing. Small audits are taxing. It ties up a number of staff. Having 2 reviews, a judicial inquiry and an audit happening concurrently, I'm concerned about it, because the people that respond to these types of things are usually our mid-managers, senior managers, all the way up to the general manager who are responding to this. And particularly for public transit, for OC Transpo, their focus right now is getting our system back up and running the way we expect it to be back up and running on the bus side and on the train side. And there's no question, I don't think anyone's going to be able to argue that being committed to meet the requirements of the Auditor General in addition to a Public Inquiries Commissioner in a judicial inquiry is going to distract and require a lot of attention by our senior managers, not only in OC Transport, across the whole organization in various departments who were engaged in that process over the last 10 years. And there are millions of documents, not only millions of pages, there could be millions of documents we're talking about over the course that have to be gathered, reviewed, read. People have to get briefed up on them, refresh their memories on what happened. And so my concern is that, if you're into this double jeopardy process, if I want to call it that, or simultaneous process, we're going to have key staff who are supposed to be running the service of the city effectively distracted trying to keep pace with the requirements that are, and legal requirements to come up with the information and be present for interviews and all the other depositions and everything else they have to do to meet the requirements of the judicial inquiry and to meet the requirements of the Auditor General. And as I also said, it doesn't mean that if there's a judicial inquiry and an Auditor General that they're going to duplicate their scope of work. The scope of work could take different paths, which effectively means that you could be looking at multiple pieces of information multiple times because they're asking for different things for that same piece of information. So it becomes a huge logistical operation for city staff and the city to be able to meet the requirements of those two processes, which at least one of them could go on for years. And I worry about the city's capability based on our capacity coming out of COVID. We're coming into a situation where people are tired, where they've been going hard for 2 years. I'm worried about the capacity of our organization to continue that level of effort, yet still recover our services going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. Nous allons maintenant passer à Julien Paquette à Le Droit.
Julien Paquette from Le
The
Droit.
question would be for City Manager. I'm just wondering regarding the latest incident. I think it happened on Monday morning. Well, at least the one you reported on Monday evening. Is there any more details available regarding the root cause of this incident?
Hi, Julian. No, there's no more. They're still investigating. What we do know is that the two trains that were involved were trains that are not in service. They're trains that are not going in service right now and are sort of at the back of the line for maintenance activities. So they were being moved around the yard to make room for the trains that we need to maintain that we're using. And what we think happened is that they connected the two trains so they could tow it, and it wasn't properly connected when they started towing, and the trains bumped into each other and caused some damage to the one of the trains or the train's windshield and windshield wiper and one of the lower panels. So it's a relatively minor accident. However, we're not happy about that. Those things shouldn't be happening. That's something that TSB came and looked at. They said they weren't going to follow up, but that's up to TSB in terms of what they want to do. It's a reportable incident. We reported it right away. We're not happy about it, but thankfully no one got hurt, and thankfully none of those two trains involved, those single cars, because there were two individual cars, were not part of the service reinstatement that we've announced.
Perfect, thank you. La prochaine question, ce serait pour le Dr. Etchez.
My next question is for Dr. Etchez.
Disponible.
If he's still available, or she's still available.
Juste une question par rapport aux chiffres
Just a question that has to do with the figures that we've been getting this week. We see an increase in COVID-19 transmission. Is this a worrisome trend, or are we still within a stability curve here? Like the same one we've been in for the last 2-3 weeks? It's important to have a balance for the months to come and to take into consideration our behaviors that could diminish transmission. It is possible to be careful and prudent and reduce the risk of transmission. Be aware that you should be wearing a mask, for instance, not to have close contact, and to protect yourself through vaccination, of course, is the best thing to do. Let's continue to do that. But we also have other measures. This is something we are reevaluating on a daily basis. When we see an increase, it starts to affect the system, and we continue to evaluate the measures that are out there. Does that answer your question? Yes, thanks very much. Thank you, Jillian.
To John Willing at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi, Kina. Thank you. It's a question for Mayor Watson. It's regarding the report about a possible province call for judicial inquiry. And on top of this letter that was kind of leaked recently too about the 60 million, and you mentioned that you had a pretty good discussion with Premier Ford and you stood next to each other. I saw in Canada recently, and he supported the city's handling of this. Why do you think others in the government are trying to release this information about LRT when at the same time you say you have this positive relationship with the Premier?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. You know, as you pointed out, the Premier was asked that question at a press conference in Canada and reiterated very clearly. He felt that the city had the resources and the ability to improve dramatically the situation with our transit system. And I thanked him for that afterwards. And afterwards, I also informed him that we had brought forward the Auditor General of the City of Ottawa as an independent statutory officer to examine all of the safety elements of the LRT. And he seemed pleased with what I was briefing him on. So there's lots of rumors. I used to work at Queen's Park myself, lots of trial balloons and rumors that go out there all the time. But we have had no contact either at the staff level or the political level as to any interest in the province hosting their own provincial inquiry, particularly when we have, through council resolution, decided that we need the Auditor General to do a full review, and that's what she is going to do. And I think you saw by the number of questions that she was given, she's not a pushover. This is not some exercise where she's trying to appease her political masters. She is very independent. She has the law on her side, and I expect that she will do a very thorough analysis and research into all of the problems going back to day one. And I'll, at the end of the day, bringing forward a series of recommendations on how we can continue to improve the system. So our first step back to improving the system starts on Friday when the safety advisors have given us the green light to move forward with train service on Friday morning. And as the city manager indicated, there, no question, with so many different moving parts, there are going to be from time to time challenges, but I have confidence in the company that we've hired. They're one of the best in North America to get to the root cause problems of a number of the different issues. I also had I'd call it a come to Jesus meeting with all of the CEOs of the consortium. And I was very vocal in my anger on behalf of the passengers and the taxpayers of the City of Ottawa. And a couple of them, I think, are in the burn unit now at the Ottawa Hospital because I was pretty rough on them because they put us through enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess a question perhaps for Mr. Kanalakis. Steve, do you know if staff can recommend free transit in December based on, I see your memo suggests that perhaps we're going to have full service by the end of November?
Yeah. Thank you, John. Yeah, we're now that we've got the word late this afternoon that we can go on Friday. I anticipate that Renee Amilcar, new GM, will be putting out something before the weekend to advise about December. They're just doing their final assessment on that too. So I'm hoping Friday morning. That's what I'm targeting to be able to put out notification on what our intentions are there.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll now be going to Elizabeth Payne at the Ottawa Sun.
Thank you. This question is for Dr. Etches. I think it's a question you might have partially answered in French, Dr. Etches. But I wanted to ask today, the province, of course, has paused further reopening, but they're leaving it to local public health units to take other more dramatic steps as cases start to rise. Cases are going up in Ottawa. So I want to ask if that's something you are considering and what metrics you would look for, at which point you think we would be bringing in further restrictions.
So what we're watching for is the rise in not only the number of people testing positive for COVID, but if it starts to touch hospitalizations and the number of people getting severe illness. We have had a bit of an increase in hospitalizations, but we also have hospital outbreaks right now that's contributing to the hospital numbers with mild infections. In fact, some of the people being counted as hospitalizations right now are actually asymptomatic. They're in hospital for other reasons. So we're watching that carefully to understand the severe illness in our community. That will definitely be a concern to see that rising quickly. So at this point, I want to thank people in Ottawa for what they have been doing, being careful in October, bringing the numbers down. We need to take a look at continuing that caution at this point. And of course, it's not too late for people if they don't have their first dose, to come forward. Adding the booster doses also helpful to stop transmission of COVID. And we are looking forward to assisting, families to make that decision for their children, 5 to 11, in the coming weeks. We just need to do a little more in terms of being cautious with the way we wear our masks, wearing our masks indoors, being careful when we're in crowds where people may not be vaccinated.
Thank you. And for follow-up, Treasury Board announced that it's going to ease some restrictions for back to work for the federal public service today. Given the timing, we're seeing case counts going up here and across the province. Does that concern you for what we could see in the city?
I think that each employer, will be reviewing what are the safety measures they need to have to prevent COVID transmission in the workplace. Vaccination is very good protection. So we've seen many employers require vaccination for people to be in the workplace. And then again, adding in the other things that make a difference. So wearing masks, being able to be distant, ventilation, these things all help, make sure that people can return to work in a safer way.
En français, s'il vous plaît, Madame Yatchez.
Oui, ce moment, c'est le cas que des entreprises considèrent si c'est temps de retourner.
It's up to businesses to decide whether they want to go back to the office or not, but there are measures that can create a healthier environment for this back to work. It's important to have proper protection via vaccination. Certain policies may differ, or it might make it mandatory to be vaccinated in order to be in the office. And we're continuing with wearing masks on the inside, proper ventilation, distancing when it's and masking, of course. And we will continue this way in order to control COVID-19.
Thank you very much. Nous allons maintenant passer à Antoine Trépanier à Radio-Canada.
Antoine Trépanier from Radio-Canada. Hello, my question is for the mayor. Mr. Watson, in the last few weeks, you were clearly opposed to the idea of having a public inquiry, judicial inquiry asked for by the city. You've put a lot of energy into those two votes for this to be reversed. Are you going to continue to put as much energy in order to discourage the provincial government to do the same if they decided to call one? Well, at the moment, the situation is, I have very good contacts with the PM, with the Premier, and this has not been talked about. I talked to Premier Ford when he was in Canada a couple of weeks ago, and he was giving a speech there. And he was answering a media question, and he said that he trusted the city. He had trust in the city and confidence in us, as well as with our public transportation system. And then I explained that we'd had a motion that was adopted by the Municipal Council asking the Auditor General to carry out a study on the safety measures on the LRT. And this is still our goal. We want to, of course, to improve the situation for all passengers taking OC Transpo. And I think that the Municipal Council voted for a public inquiry headed by the Auditor General, and I will continue to support this measure. My next question has to do with the consultation process on transport. We're talking about a future bridge, a tramway, whatnot. What about those last consultations with Sienna? What do you think about all this?
Antoine, certainement.
Well, of course, there's opposition to another bridge, especially in the Kettle Island, and there's not a lot of support for an extra bridge in Ottawa, either here or in the province. And I will continue with this opposition. I really don't think that this is necessary, and it's certainly not a priority for us. I will continue to oppose this proposal, and by the same token, CCN did not have an official to ask this because it's the responsibility of both municipalities, Gatineau and Ottawa. It wasn't up to them to ask for it.
Thank you very
Thank you.
This concludes our media availability for today. Ceci conclut notre point de presse. Bonne journée.
Can't wait to show you how to use some egg whites. I'm even going to show you a couple things that we can do with some eggshells. So stay tuned. Hit our like button, our subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.